So we are reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, 10th canto, chapter 87, Prayers by the Personified Vedas, text 23, translation purport by the disciples of His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Nibrita marun manoksha drida yoga yujo ridiyan. Munaya upasate tadarayo piyayu smaranat. Striya uragendra bhoga bhujadanda vishakto diyo. Vayam apite samak samadrishongri saroja sudha. Nibrita, brought under control. Marut, with breathing. Manaha, mind. Aksha, and senses. Drida yoga, in steadfast yoga. Yujaha, engaged. Riddhi, in the heart. Yat, which. Munayaha, sages. Upasate, worship. Tat, that. Arayaha, enemies. Api, also. Yayuhu, attained. Smaranad, by remembering. Striyaha, women. Uragaindra, of lordly serpents. Bhoga, like the bodies. Bhuja, whose arms. Danda, rod-like. Vishakta, attracted. Diya, whose minds. Vayam, we. Api, also. Te, to you. Samaha, equal. Sama, equal. Drishyaha, whose vision. Angri, of the feet. Saroja, lotus-like. Sudha, relishing the nectar. Translation. Simply by constantly thinking of Him, the enemies of the Lord attained the same supreme truth whom sages fixed in yoga worship by controlling their breath, mind and senses. Similarly, we Shrutis, who generally see you as all-pervading, will achieve the same nectar from your lotus feet that your consorts are able to relish because of their loving attraction to your mighty serpentine arms, for you look upon us and your consorts in the same way.
Просто като постоянно мислят за Него, враговете на Бога постигат същата абсолютна истина. Когато мъдреците са съсредоточени в йога, обожават, като овладяват своят дъх, ум и сетива. По същия начин ние, шрутите, които обикновено те виждаме, като се проникваш, ще постигнем същия нектар от твоите лотосови музеи, който твоите съпруги са способни да се наслаждават, тъй като поради тяхната любовно привличане към твоите силни, подобни на змии ръце. защото ти гледаш на нас и на твоите съпруги по същия начин.
Purport. According to Acharya Srila Jiva Goswami, the few Shrutis, such as the Gopala Tapani Upanishad, who identify the cowherd boy Krishna with the absolute Brahman in its highest aspect, had so far been patiently waiting for their turn to speak.
Според Ачаря Джива Госвами, няколко шрути, такива като Гопала Тапани Упанишад, които отъждествяват Възтаричето Кришна с абсолютния браман в най-висшия му аспект, но сега търпеливо са чакали за техния ред да говорят.
But after hearing the other Shrutis offer prayers openly glorifying the Lord's personality, these intimate Shrutis could no longer contain themselves, and so they spoke out of turn in this verse.
Но след като чули как другите шрути предлагат молитви, открито възхваляващи личността на Бога, тези близки или интимни шрути повече не могли да се въздържат и започнали да говорят в този текст.
Followers of the path of mystic yoga subdue their senses and minds by practicing breath control and severe austerities.
Последователите на пътя на мистичната йога покоряват техните сетива и умове, като практикуват контрол над дъха и суров аскетизъм.
If they succeed in thoroughly purifying themselves by this regimen, they may eventually begin to realize the Paramatma, the personal form of Brahman within the heart.
Ако те успеят напълно да се пречистят чрез този процес, те в крайна сметка започват да осъзнават Параматма, личностната форма на Брахман в сърцето.
And if they continue this meditation without deviation for a long time, they may in the end come to the point of true God consciousness.
И ако те продължат тази медитация, без да се отклоняват за дълго време, те могат накрая да достигнат до етапа на истинско осъзнание за Бога.
But the same objective achieved in this difficult and uncertain way was also attained by the demons who were killed by Lord Krishna during his pastimes on the earth.
Но същият резултат бил постигнат по този труден и който е постиган по този труден и несигурен начин, също от демоните, които били убити от Кришна по време на неговите завладения на земята.
Obsessed with enmity toward him, demons like Kamsa and Shishupal quickly obtained the perfection of liberation simply by his killing them.
Обзети от враждебност към него, демоните като Камса и Шишупал бързо постигнали съвършенството на освобождението, просто като били убити от него.
Speaking for themselves, however, the personified Vedas here state that they would prefer to develop love of Godhead by learning to emulate the favorable surrender of Lord Krishna's confidential devotees, especially the young gopis of Vraja.
Говорейки за себе си, обаче, олицетворените Веди тук казват, че те предпочитат да развият любовта към Бога, като се научат да следват благоприятното отдаване, на което имат поверителните предани на Бог Кришна, особено младите гопи на Vraja.
Though they appeared to be simple women attracted conjugally to the Lord's physical beauty and strength, the goddesses of Vraja exhibited the highest perfection of meditation.
Макар да изглежда, че те били обикновени жени, привлечени съпружески към личната красота и сила на Бога, богините на Vraja проявили най-висшето съвършенство на медитацията.
The Shrutis wish to become just like them.
Шрутите желали да станат точно като тях.
In this regard, Lord Brahma relates the following historical account in the supplement to the Brihad Vamana Purana.
Тази връзка Бог Брахма разказва следната история в допълнителната част на Брихад Vamana Purana.
Brahmanda Mayoloko Vyapi Vaikunta Sangitaha Taloka Vasi Tatra Stai Stuto Vedai Parad Paraha. The infinite world of spiritual bliss is called Vaikunta. There the supreme truth lives, being glorified by the personified Vedas who are also present there.
Безкрайният свят на духовно блаженство се нарича Вайкунта. Там върховната истина живее. Възхвалявана от олицетворените дели, които също се намират.
Chirang stutva tatas tushta paroksham praha tan gira tushto smi bruto bhobragya varangyang manasepsitam. Once, after the Vedas had elaborately praised him, the Lord felt especially satisfied and spoke to them in a voice whose source remained invisible. My dear sages, I am very satisfied with you. Please ask me for some benediction that you secretly desire.
След като ведите са го възхвалявали, достатъчно Богът изпитал особено удовлетворение и им казал с глас, който останал невидим: мои скъпи мъдреци, аз съм изключително удовлетворен от вас. Моля ви, поискайте от мен благословия, която вие тайно желаете.
Shrutaya uchu yatha loka vasinya kama tatvena gopikaha bhajanti ramanang matva chikirshayani nastata. The Shrutis replied, we have developed the desire to become like the cowherd women of the mortal world who, inspired by lust, worship you in the mood of a lover.
Шрутите отговорили, ние развихме желание да станем като пастирките в временния свят, които, вдъхновени от поход, те обожават в настроението на любим.
Sri Bhagavanu Vacha Durlabo Durgatash Chaiva Yushmakam Sa Manorataha Mayanu Moditak Samyak Satyo Bhavitum Arhati. The Lord then said, this desire of yours is difficult to fulfill. Indeed, it is almost impossible. But since I am sanctioning it, your wish must inevitably come true.
Богът тогава каза, това ваше желание е много трудно да се изпълни. Всъщност е почти невъзможно. Но тъй като аз го одобрявам, желанието ви в крайна сметка ще се изпълни.
Agamini virinshautu jati srishtartam udite kalpam sarashvatam prapya vrajegopyo bhavishyata. When the next Brahma takes birth to faithfully execute his duties of creation, and when the day of his life called the Sarasvata Kalpa arrives, you will appear in Vraja as gopis.
Когато следващият Брахма се роди, за да изпълни вярно своите задължения за творение, и когато денят в неговия живот, наречен Сарасвата Калпа, и когато дойде неговия ден, тогава вие ще се появите във Враджа като гопи.
Prithiviyam bharate kshetre mature mama mandale Vrindavane bhavishyami preyan vorasa mandale. On the earth, in the land of Bharata, in my own district of Mathura, in the forest of Vrindavan, I will become your beloved in the circle of the rasa dance.
На земята, в областта Бхарата, в моята Матура, горите на Вриндавана, аз ще стана вашият любим в кръгът на танца раса.
Jaradharmena susneham sudridam sarvatorikam mayisam prapya sarvepi krita kritya bhavishyata. Thus, obtaining me as your paramour, you will all gain the most exalted and steadfast pure love for me, and in this way you will fulfill all your ambitions.
Така, постигайки ме като ваш любим, вие ще развиете най-възвишената и устойчива чиста любов към мен и по този начин ще изпълните всичките си желания.
Brahmovāca Shrutaiva tach chintayantashta rupam bhagavatash chiram uktakalam samasadya gopyo budva harim gata. Lord Brahma said, after hearing these words, the Shrutis meditated on the personality of Godhead's beauty for a long time. When the designated time ultimately arrived, they became gopis and obtained the association of Krishna.
Бог Брахма каза, след като чуха тези думи, шрутите медитираха върху красотата на личността на Бога дълго време. Когато определеното време се случи, в крайна сметка пристигна, те станаха гопи и постигнаха общуването на Кришна.
A similar account can be found in the Srishti Kanda of the Padma Purana, which describes how the Gayatri mantra also became a gopi.
Подобен разказ намираме и в Сришти Канда на Падма Пурана, която описва как Гайатри мантрата също става гопи.
Regarding the development of bhakti, Lord Krishna further states in the Gopala Tapani Upanishad Uttara 4, Aputa puto bhavati yang mam smritva avrati vrati bhavati yang mam smritva nishkamaha sakamo bhavati yang mam smritva ashrutri shrutri bhavati yang mam smritva. By remembering me, one who is impure becomes pure. By remembering me, one who follows no vows becomes a strict follower of vows. By remembering me, one who is desireless develops desires to serve me. And by remembering me, one who has studied no Vedic mantras becomes an expert knower of the Vedas.
Що се отнася до развиването на Бхакти, Бог Кришна обяснява в Гопала Тапани Упанишад Уттара 4. Като ме помни, човек, който е нечист, става чист. Като ме помни, този, който не следва обети, става стриктен последовател на обети. Като ме помни, човек, който страда, а който няма желание, развива желание да ми служи. Като ме помни, този, който не е изучал ведическите мантри, става опитен познавач на ведите.
The Brihad Aranyaka Upanishad 4.5.6 refers to the gradual steps in the process of becoming Krishna conscious. Atmava aredrishtavya shrotavyo mantavyo nidhiyasitavya. It is the self which must be observed, heard about, thought of, and meditated upon with fixed concentration.
Брихат Арanyaka Upanishad 4.5.6 описва постепенните стъпки в процеса на ставането на Кришна, процеса на осъзнаването на Кришна. Атмава аре дръштавя, шотавя, мантавя, нидидхяситавя. Себето, човек трябва да наблюдава себето, да слуша за себето, да мисли и да медитира върху него с съсредоточено внимание.
The idea here is that one should realize the Supreme Self as directly visible in his full personality by the following means.
Идеята тук е, че човек трябва да осъзнае върховното себе, като директно видим в неговата личностна форма чрез следното средство.
First, one should hear the instructions of a qualified representative of the Paramatma and take the words of such a spiritual master into one's heart by offering him humble service and striving in all ways to please him.
Първо, човек трябва да слуша наставленията на квалифициран представител на Параматма и да приеме думите на такъв духовен учител в сърцето си, като му отдава смирено служение и се опитва по всякакъв начин да го удовлетвори.
One should then ponder the divine message of the spiritual master continuously with the aim of dispelling all one's doubts and misconceptions.
Човек след това трябва да размишлява върху божественото послание на духовния учител дълго време с целта да разпръсне съмненията си и погрешните си разбирания.
Then one can proceed to meditate on the Supreme Lord's lotus feet with total conviction and determination.
След това човек може да продължи да медитира върху своите нозе на Бога с пълно убеждение и решителност.
So-called jnanis may think that the Upanishads praise nirvishesha, impersonal realization of the Supreme, as more complete and final than savishesha, personal worship of the Supreme Godhead.
Така наречените гяни може да се мисля, че Упанишадите възхваляват нирвишеша, безличностната реализация на Върховния като по-съвършена и крайна, отколкото савишеша, личностното обожание на Върховния Бог.
All honest Vaishnavas, however, join in adhering to the devotional service of the Supreme Lord, always meditating with pleasure on his infinitely wonderful, variegated spiritual qualities.
Всички честни вайшнави обаче следват преданото служение или се придържат към преданото служение на Върховния Бог, винаги медитирайки с удоволствие върху неговата безкрайно необикновени и разнообразни духовни качества.
In the words of the Shruti mantras, Yam evaisha vrinute tena labhyas tasyaisha atma vivrinute tanum swam. To that person whom the Supreme Soul chooses, he becomes attainable. To that person the Supreme Soul reveals his personal form.
Когато върховната душа избере, този човек може да я разбере. На тази личност, върховната душа разкрива личностната си форма. Ката Упанишад 1-2-3.
So this is from Kata Upanishad 1-23 and Mundaka Upanishad 3-3. Srila Sridhar Swami concludes with the prayer. Charanasmaranam premna tavadeva sudurlabam yatha katanchit nrihare mama bhuyat aharnisham. O Lord, loving remembrance of your lotus feet is very rarely achieved. Please, O Nrihari, somehow arrange for me to have that remembrance day and night.
О Господи, помненето на Твоите лотосови с любов е много трудно за постигане. Моля Ти, О Нрихари, по някакъв начин помогни ми да имам това помнене ден и нощ.
Yes, as Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, this remembrance comes from me, smriti apohanangscha. But there has to be a little bit of a desire, so Krishna will give the remembrance. That was the case, as we heard from these Shrutis, who had the desire to appear as gopis in Krishna's pastimes. And then it depends on Krishna. He said, it's very difficult, but I can make some arrangement. Yes. So nothing is impossible for the Lord. And as we heard in this verse, and Bhakti-yoga Thakur says the same in the song Gopinath, that even the demons, by thinking of you, they attain you, which is very surprising. So here they say that the enemies of the Lord attain the same truth that sages attain who practice yoga by controlling their breath, mind and senses. Difficult Ashtanga yoga process.
Те казват, че демоните постигат същия резултат, какъвто постигат и мъдреците и практикуващи трудната аштанга йога чрез контролното на сетивата.
So one may think, well, why should I take the trouble of becoming an Ashtanga yogi, just become an enemy? So this liberation, at any rate, is not what devotees aspire to. Here were Kamsa and Shishupal mentioned, and the description is that they entered into the body of the Lord. That's not the goal. Prabhupada sometimes says if somebody wants to go back into the womb of his mother, and stay there. No. The devotee rather keeps outside of the Lord and has a relationship with Him. Yes, as it is said here, the personified Vedas say here that they would prefer to develop love of God by learning to emulate the favorable surrender of Lord Krishna's confidential devotees.
Тук казват, че предпочитат да развият любовни чувства към Бога, следвайки стъпките на неговите повелителни предани.
So that's the idea that by hearing about Krishna from Srimad Bhagavatam, for example, and becoming attracted to those pastimes, then a desire may develop that I also would like to be like that.
Ето се казва, че когато човек слуша за Кришна и за неговите забавления, постепенно това желание се развива, че би пожелава да стане така.
So that is called raga anuga, following the type of attraction that a devotee in Krishna's pastimes has.
Това се нарича рага ануга или следването на стъпките на преданите, които участват в забавлението.
And as Prabhupada warns, it doesn't mean you become that devotee. No, anuga, you follow the example. And if Krishna so desires, he may admit you to participate. Why not? There's always room for one more. Like the rasa dance seems like it's a complete circle, but there's always room. One more can. Yes, of course. Why not? So that's Krishna's supreme mystic potency. As many as want to participate, there's always room. You can expand in a few more if necessary. Why not? So it depends on us, as we find out here, to develop a desire. Then it's possible. And before that, well, of course, then one has to become purified. Otherwise, such desire will not arise in the heart. Although it's still reflected, therefore we like to go to a disco and dance like there. Not necessarily in a circle, but some other way. But the tendency, the impetus is there. Yeah. Well, that's the modern version. When Prabhupada speaks about it, he says ballroom dancing, which nowadays practically doesn't exist. They only do it in Vienna once a year. The big waltz, everybody goes together, and so that's the idea. And it's not exactly like the rasa dance; it's a reflection, but the desire is the same. Yes, maybe Johann Strauss will appear somewhere someday when he becomes purified to compose some nice songs for dancing in the rasa dance. Yeah, the whole Strauss dynasty, they're all expert composers for waltz. Yeah. World famous, still after so many years. People why do you like it? Because originally in the spiritual world, that's what they do. Even the rhythm and some of the melodies, they may be a reflection, who knows, the perfection of the waltz. And it's there, so, there's nothing new under the sun. Yeah. So, Yeah, one has to become attracted to that and not stay in the ballroom or the disco.
Човек трябва да бъде привлечен към изначалното, а не да се насочва към диското или залата.
Yes. Yeah, Upanishad here it says it's gradual steps in the process of becoming Krishna conscious.
Тук е цитирано Upanishad, постепенните стъпки за осъзнаването на Кришна.
Yeah, you can't. Generally, it's not possible to just jump to that platform. Whoever tries that, generally they fail.
Никога човек не може да скочи директно от тази платформа. Тези, които се опитват, се провалят.
I mean, it happens even amongst devotees sometimes. You know, the imagination that I'm this, I'm on that level, and one imagines to have some interaction, even with Krishna.
Това се случва дори с преданите, но те не са на нивото. Те си въобразяват и си мислят, че дори са достигнали на нивото, където имат взаимоотношения с Кришна.
They compose some songs, I want to dance with you.
Напишат песни, аз искам да танцувам с
теб. That's not the Goswami's example.
Това не е пример на Госвами.
They're rather, where are you? I want to dance with you. Come on, let's get together, have a good time. That's not the consciousness of advanced devotees. They feel unqualified. That I was so unfortunate that I could not attain Krishna. Where are you? And feeling separation.
Заслужавам и не успях да те постигна, Господи, така те мислят и изпитват чувство на раздяла.
Yes, so therefore even here this last prayer by Sridhar Swami says that this remembrance of your lotus feet is very rarely achieved. It's not such an easy thing, even just to remember, what to speak of having a direct relationship.
Затова и Шридхар Свами в молитвата си накрая казва, това помнене на Теб, Господи, е изключително трудно.
So therefore he's asking, he's begging, praying that somehow arrange for me to have that remembrance day and night. Good. What else?
It was interesting, Maharaj, this quote from Bhakti-yoga Upanishad. You mentioned it last, the steps to becoming Krishna conscious, and the first is seeing the self.
Oh.
And then thinking and meditating like that. And I guess that would refer in Vaishnava context to seeing the deity.
Yes, of course. Well, here the self is, that depends. Here the self is written in capital letter, and this Atma, in Sanskrit we don't have capital letter, so it depends how you look at it.
Питах за цитата от този Упанишад, където се казва, че последователните стъпки започват с виждането на себето с голяма буква, на санскрит няма големи и малки, и трябва да се види според контекста какво е.
Yes, well, probably it's correct because should be observed and heard about, drashtavyak shrotavyo, mantavyo, thought of and meditated upon with fixed concentration. That is probably, most likely, the Supreme Self. Not one doesn't. Some do this, meditate on yourself.
И тук контекстът трябва да заключим, че се отнася до върховното себе, което трябва да бъде виждано, слушано за него, да бъде медитирано и така нататък, уважавано, и някой, разбира се, предпочита да прави това със себе си.
But on the other hand, we have also Srila Prabhupada's explanation that if we want to know something about the Supreme Self, if we study our own self, we get some idea.
От друга страна, Шрила Прабхупада обяснява, че ако искаме да разберем нещо за върховното себе, трябва да изучим нашето себе първо.
And what's the logic behind that? Question. What's the logic? Yes. That because we are part and parcels. So the qualities are essentially the same, just very minute. Therefore he says, if you study a drop taking from the ocean and analyze it, you'll find the same qualities as is in the big ocean. Therefore, yes, because we are persons, we have desires, we like to interact with others, and this and so many things we are or we like, and where is it coming from? Therefore, this idea that the absolute truth in its ultimate sense is impersonal something, non-dual substance, just doesn't make much sense. And the only way to explain how this is then, that we have this and we experience, we feel like this and we think like this, but is that it's all illusion. It's an appearance, right? Yes, that's how they describe it. You know, this thing we remember of this Swami giving the answer. Somebody was voicing this doubt, but if this is the ultimate, then why does somebody of our great realized, whatever you want to call them, I don't even want to call them acharyas, but yes, Shankaracharya and etc. Why then do they compose poetry and glorify and chant and worship if it's all an appearance? This is fake, this is not good, this is just, you're not truthful. It's dishonest.
И въпросът беше защо по крайна сметка абсолютно безличностен великите учители, ачари като Шанкара и други са съставили толкова поеми, молитви към Бога и са го обожавали, ако в крайна сметка това е привидност, това не е честно, не е искрено.
So of course, if they would have asked us, we would have told that person, of course, they can't help it. It's a natural tendency. They're actually persons. You don't believe it, huh? But they're actually persons. They don't want to recognize it, but they can't really help it. They like to chant. They like to worship. They like to compose poetry. Rasa, they like it.
Те са личности, макар да не искат, това е естествената им склонност да обожават, да предлагат молитви, това е расата.
And then the rascals still will say, it's only an experience. You should do this. Only when you come to my level you can do this. You should all just think of the impersonal whatever. Nothing. Don't think of anything. That's even next step.
Вие просто не трябва да мислите за нещо личностното и всъщност най-добре да не мислите. Това е следващото ниво.
And the Swami is such a rascal. He said, there's no contradiction. It's just different levels. I know that it's not true, but I like it. So leave me. Don't criticize me. No, the truth is that yes, we are parts and parcels of that supreme absolute truth, which is a person who has desires, who has activities, and who has relationships. So don't be surprised if you like it.
Истината е, че ние сме частици от върховна личност и ние също сме личности с желания и дейности и така нататък, така че не се очудвайте, че ни харесват.
But the problem is, he's so great and I'm so small. I don't like that.
Проблема е, че е толкова велик, аз съм толкова нищожен, малък и не ми харесва.
So what? I am that. So that's the real thing. So worship me. Anyway, so yeah. The self, that was the point. If one studies oneself, you can know a lot about Krishna. Just take away all the impurities.
Просто трябва да отстраним всичко, което е нечисто, замърсяване.
So,
It was said that if you don't have enough knowledge, but you remember Krishna, you're qualified to be a knower of the Vedas.
you'll be what?
Qualified to be a knower of the Vedas.
A know?
Knower.
Knower.
You know the Vedas.
Oh, to know the
If you
Vedas.
remember Krishna. But
Okay.
how can you remember Krishna if you don't have enough knowledge for that? It was said
Who said? Where does it say that?
It was in the book when this must be from the quote of Gopal Thakur. If you remember, then
Oh, by remembering one who is impure becomes pure. By remembering one who is by remembering one who has studied no Vedic mantras becomes an expert knower of the Vedas. Aha, interesting. This is just a quote, there's no explanation. Well, let's speculate. Let's think about it.
Въпросът е всъщност как може да станем познавачи, т.е. как може да помним Бога преди да го познаваме.
So Krishna says, but Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Tesham evanukampartam. Kampartam. Yes, and then yes, Jnana Dipena. Jnana Dipena, that he is in the heart. So somehow or other, you may not have full knowledge. You have maybe heard about Krishna.
По някакъв начин Кришна ни обяснява това Бхагавад Гита. Може да нямаме пълно знание, може да сме чули за Кришна.
And for whatever reason, because you are part and parcel of Krishna, you would like to know more about him. Or even somebody engages you in devotional service or tells you about devotional service, and somehow other you perform devotional service without knowing really what you're doing. So that's called Agyata Sukriti. And Krishna is in the heart at any rate. Even if you're stupid, he's still there in the heart. Which is good news. I mean, Prabhupada said, he's so merciful, even if you become a pig, he still accompanies you. So then the point is this Tesham evanukampartam, that I am very favorable, very merciful, whoever tries to serve in whatever capacity. And in those purports, Prabhupada says, even if somebody is not very expert in studying or he just doesn't have the brain, but Krishna in the heart, he will give the knowledge that is necessary. But you have to be sincere, not lazy. Then then I don't have to read and I don't have to study, I never have to go to any class. I just, let Krishna be merciful and give me knowledge just like that. That's, as we can understand, that's cheating mentality. That's pretending, it's not sincere. Then Krishna says, no. Come on, become a little bit more, get out of your lethargic mentality. But there may be somebody, yes, they try really hard. But to remember a verse, it's like impossible. It's very difficult. Even after hearing it 100 times, still, memory just doesn't cooperate. So Krishna sees that, poor fellow, he's really trying hard. So whatever knowledge is necessary to serve properly, he will give that. Because on the other hand, you may have even those kind of sannyas, they know many verses by heart. They may know the whole Bhagavad-gita by heart.
От друга страна може да има такива саняси, които да знаят толкова стихове, дори да знаят цялата Бхагавад-гита в Исус.
But they haven't understood one word.
Не са разбрали една дума.
So, yeah, like there was one devotee, Prabhupada tried to teach him Gayatri mantra, and just pronunciation, even after 10 times he would do it wrong. He said, okay, just whatever you can do, you know. So, you know, that may happen.
Веднъж един предан Прабхупад се опитва да го обучи как да повтори точно Гайатри мантрата. Той не успява, Прабхупад каза, окей, няма проблем. Каквото ти казваш, Кришна.
Krishna will know what you want, the intention. That's the important thing.
Кришна знае намерението, това е важно.
But it doesn't mean that, then I can just be negligent. I can do, chant or pronounce whatever way. It doesn't really matter. Krishna will know what I mean, and so I don't have to make an effort.
Това не означава, че не полагаме усилия или сме непрежни и си казваме, няма значение, как го произнасям, колко казвам, Кришна знае намерението.
Yeah, that's not acceptable. We understand that. That's not very difficult to understand why it's not acceptable. So like, we have some mantras that are given to us, so why are we negligent and we don't chant them properly? Like Nisinga Pranam, it's just too difficult to change from A to O. The mind just doesn't want to cooperate. Yeah, the mind says, why A and O? Just A. Just go A. It's good enough. Krishna will know. Nishingadev will know. Why do I, and whether it's Narsingha, Madim or Nirsingham, who cares? No, this who cares, that's the problem.
Защо пък сега А и О? Просто А. Колко е трудно. Няма проблем, казвам си го така, Кришна ще разбере. Синха или Нара Синха, това е едно също. Кой го е грижи? Това е проблема. Да се кажем кой го е грижи.
Whether it's Sarasvati Deva or Sarasvati Deva, who cares?
Кой го тук? Дали ще е Сарасвати Дева или Сарасвати Дева?
Well, Prabhupada cared. In the class, he made a whole thing about it. You're saying it, it doesn't mean that when you pronounce like this, it has a different meaning, so you should pronounce like that. And then just goes on, since after 50 years, still Sarasvati Devi. Like with Jaina, what can be done? You do whatever you can. No, but if we can, you cannot be negligent. And then so many other things are there. Anyway, so that's it. We did it. I did a whole long purport. Amazing. We just have to do it, Okay, so then now tomorrow will be 24 already. Okay, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Gauravani Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Sri Nitai Gauravani Vrinda ki